Good afternoon, everyone. Live from Silicon Valley, California. This is Spiritual Fitness. My name is JM, and I welcome you all to a program today, Success Sadhana, where we are discussing various superpowers that you can acquire to achieve a goal. Today, we'll be discussing superpower number 3, simplicity, the path to purity, with your host, Vaish, a veteran Bhakti yogi, author, and former monk. You're close to 20 members on Zoom and 50 members on Facebook. I have Shweka helping me out in managing social media today. Good afternoon, Vaish. Welcome to another episode of Success Sadhana.
Oh, thank you very much, JM. Great to see you. And great to be back with all of you today, especially for this topic, simplicity. It's elusive how it might be a superpower. However, that's the profound nature of many of these superpowers, is that they are within our grasp. Oftentimes, we think of them as being something bestowed by some unnatural or some supernatural, rather, force that comes down in a lightning bolt or something like that, but they've already been bestowed. It's just a matter of recognizing them and employing them, and simplicity is one of the best, I would say. Why do you look so happy today, Jam? Please tell me. Or is that every day?
It's just this program. Then I get to push all my anxiety and baggages off, and for one hour, just be in this oasis. So yeah, I'm just happy just being here. So as you mentioned in the title, you can just be yourself and be happy.
Sounds good. I like that. Happy for no reason, except just being here. Yes, go ahead.
No.
I'm curious to know, any of you, just what brought you here today? Just if you have anything in your mind, what was the impetus that, I mean, you have a lot going on, all of you. You're busy. There's many things happening in your lives. And you're taking a few minutes here just to get us started. What is it? What brought you on the program today? Just to warm up. You can use the chat, or you can just speak up and say, I'm here because ... What comes to your mind?
I am here.
Yes.
Because it feels really good. I'm just waiting for this hour all week. And I just, and I felt like I don't know, like yesterday in the meeting, my colleagues asked me the same question you asked AM, why are you happy? And I said, I don't know. I'm just like, and I think one of the reasons that I'm happier is because of this program. And thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. The feeling is mutual, Miriam. Well, we talked about it the other day. How frequently do I actually feel okay? I mean, there's nothing in obstructing my feeling of being okay. And at one point do I hit, I'm better than okay. And intoxication doesn't count, because you come crashing back down again, and there's myriad implications afterwards. So you can't count that. It's artificial. When do you feel okay? What else, JM, from the chat box?
I think Rajesh wants to go, is it?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I just want to get inspired. I think how to be not selfish, how we can serve selflessly. So a few minutes ago, I had a conversation with my manager where we are talking about how I'm doing. And in one of the conversation where I just helped someone because he was new to our organization, I just helped him, but I was feeling so reluctant to share, because I thought we should be helping because somebody new, and he should be feeling welcome. And I helped him. But when I hesitantly shared that one, then he kept on, this is all what we need, and this is all we need. So I see there is a mood where people appreciate that, how we could be selfless, and I get inspiration when I hear from you that part. So
inspiration, it comes from Middle English, from Old French, from Latin, of course. Spirare, breathe. The word was originally used of a divine or supernatural being in the sense of impart a truth or idea to someone. That's where inspire. You said inspiration a couple times. Great word, inspiration. We feel it coming from within. That's what drives us. Go ahead, JM.
No, there are quite a few coming on chat. We may take the entire hour. Linda says, your words always bring me peace. Pradeep says, my opportunity for spiritual fitness, much needed to deal with the rest of my life. S says, seeing you and hearing from you makes me happy. KHN, taking time out for myself, work week very busy. Subhadra says, I feel like this sets a foundational perspective in my life that is constructive and serene. Roseanne says, yep, with so much going on, taking a little time away for me to be grounded. Nicole says, this is a golden hour, totally worry-free. Roseanne again says, this feeds me.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, thank you everybody for responding. I'm going to look at the rest of them in a minute or two, but I want to bring let's go to the superpower of simplicity. And I just want to set this up a little bit. One of the ways in which we can realize the power of simplicity is realizing what complicates our lives. And when we lose simplicity and we end up chasing many things at the same time, like there's an old saying, if you chase two rabbits, you won't catch either of them. And in the Bhagavad Gita, the ancient wisdom literature, it's also mentioned, Vyavasayatmaka buddhir ekeha kurunandana. Keep a one-pointed attention on the ultimate goal of your life. If you have that, even if you have a lot of things going on, if you know your ultimate purpose and you're clear about it, AK means one thing. Ekeha kurunandana. He's telling his student that to stay fixed. Otherwise, he said, Buddhayo avyavasayinam, your intelligence will become many-branched. It means that you'll be scatterbrained, and it's very frustrating. So what is it, how is it that we attain simplicity? And before we try just a little bit of introspection, I just want to bring your attention to the Upanishads, ancient wisdom texts written in Sanskrit thousands of years ago that are meant to give us this directive. One of the main themes in the Upanishads is that we all come from the same conscious source. So I claim in this, in the subtitle of this presentation today, that when we're able to feel that unity, to see that unity for ourselves, which actually the Upanishad said is reality, we are united. That breeds, seeing unity breeds simplicity and gentleness as well. I'm going to go into that. So let's just take a moment, because we can, to close our eyes and just focus on the breath for a minute and try this little trick of sitting up just a slight bit straighter than you were a second ago, because by doing that, your mind will become alert and stay alert, but relaxed. And just take the luxury to breathe and the super luxury to notice your breath to the exclusion of everything else. And draw in nourishing oxygen. Exhale any impurities the body wants to get rid of, and really focus your mind on one thing, and that is your breathing. And watch it and feel gratitude for the fact that you can breathe. Keep an alert mind, stay relaxed and focus. And stay in this focused state And I'm going to read you a statement from the Upanishads. Let it go deeply within. We are conscious living beings who inhabit a physical body. All facilities are given to these small conscious units, namely living beings, to enable them to realize the complete whole. All forms of incompleteness are experienced due to incomplete knowledge of the complete whole. The human form of life is a complete manifestation of the consciousness of the living being, and it is given so that we can realize our connection to the complete whole. And as you're keeping an alert mind, you're relaxed, we'll bring one mantra into the mind, which means complete happiness, the source of all complete happiness, Rama. It's 2 syllables, R-A-M-A. And in your mind, as I say the mantra, just hear the resonance. Rama, Rama, Rama. And now you can practice the mantra, vocalize it behind muted mics. Rama, Rama, Rama. And feel how the vibration has entered within your mental system. This mantra corresponds with the complete whole. And when we hear the mantra and enter within it, we can feel that we're a small part of the complete whole. Bring your awareness back to your breath. You rub your hands together, bring some external sensation and come back into the room. And now I'm going to show a couple of slides. So, all things and beings, despite their varieties of appearance, are from the same source and are therefore related. When I forget my connection to that source, is that the first slide?
Yeah, I can go to second source.
Okay. Then I feel anxiety. This is one of the teachings of the ancient Bhakti Yoga wisdom texts that say, Bhayam dvitiya abhinibheshata syat. So abhinibheshata means absorption in features of the world that bring me anxiety or fear. Bhayam means fear. And dvitiya, dvi means two. So dvitiya, when I'm seeing separateness, when I don't see my connection with the complete whole, then I feel fear, I feel anxiety. So how does this matter in a practical way, and how does it relate to human psychology? Let's just come back into the room for a second. There's an experiment done by Levine Incorporated, social experiment. I read about this recently, and it's called the football fans experiment. So they wanted to see the effects of humans identifying with a specific group identity. So as their population study, they used Manchester United fans, it's a football club, and Manchester and Liverpool Football Club. Anybody familiar? Okay, I'm not. So I see a lot of heads nodding like you can relate to that. Okay, good. I'm glad this is relatable. So a group, they gathered, did the researchers together, a group of fans who were with Manchester United. And they asked them, why do you support Manchester United? Of course, asking a football fan or any sports fan, why do you support your team? You might get some very, simplistic answers. In any case, they asked these questions of the participants, and then they said, we have 50% more questions. Half the other questions we're going to ask you are in a different venue, so you have to walk across the street to the other building, and there we have our researchers, our interviewers ready to ask you the questions. So they walked in a group, and it was staged that as they were about to cross the street, a jogger came by and slipped and fell, holding his ankle apparently in pain, and couldn't get up, almost right in front of them. So how is the scientific aspect enacted? First of all, the first jogger that came by, the first group, was wearing a Manchester United jersey and then fell. Second one was wearing a Liverpool jersey in front of the Manchester fans. And the third one was wearing a generic jersey. There's no emblem on it whatsoever. So the consistent results they reported were that when the person was wearing a Manchester jersey, 90% of the fans standing there ran to help him. When it was a Liverpool jersey or the control jersey with nothing on it, only 30% went to help. So they did it again. They did a similar experiment, and they asked the participants, rather than why do you support Manchester United, they said, why do you love the game at all? And this time they sent them across to answer the other half of the questions. And when the Manchester jersey came by, 80% helped, and 70% helped the Liverpool jersey, and 20% helped the control. So they came up with this conclusion that is parallel with what I read for you from the ancient Upanishads. Talk about developing our consciousness with a higher perspective. So they said, superordinate goals reduce animosity between different countries and groups of people. They went on to say, this is a crucial finding. Arbitrary differences, such as which football team one supports and whether this group identity is further reinforced, can significantly influence one's behavior towards another person. The fact that the level of help offered to Liverpool fans increased dramatically when the group lines were redrawn points to a key way in which we can help combat racism, namely encouraging ourselves to think of people of differing races as similar to us because of certain characteristics they share, and making those shared characteristics more salient in our mind than those of race. It is obvious that on a global level, encouraging people to think of others as members of humankind and what unites us as humans is a necessary attitude in order to eradicate divisions between people. So then the ancient wisdom literatures take it a step further, okay, we can look from a higher perspective and see the unity between humankind. But what about other species? Do they count also? Of course, there's been a huge movement in this direction towards like, hey, wait a minute. Why are you arbitrarily leaving out a whole group of living entities? Don't we also have to take them into account too? They have different bodies and so forth. So in the ancient wisdom text Bhagavad Gita, there's a verse that says, Vidya Vinaya Sampane Brahmane Gavihastani Shuni Chaiva Shopakecha Pandita Samadarshina. Pandit, a learned person, is one who sees beyond the difference of the external body, no matter what kind of body it is. And if you check the Constitution of the United States, this is one of its intentions, is that of course, it says in this sort of archaic language, all men are created equal. It means all humankind are created equal. But if you extend that just a couple more inches, you get to this concept from the Upanishads, and that is all living beings come from the same original conscious source. We're all related. And in an thought experiment that I often perform when I'm driving on the road and somebody does something that is inconsiderate, let's say, driving, and then I do a thought experiment. Okay, what's the difference in my reaction if I don't know who's in the car, and then if I imagine, okay, it's my brother driving the car, would it make a difference in how I reacted? In one, I feel unified because, yeah, I identify with that person. In the other, it could be anyone. It's nondescript. It's an impersonal force, and therefore I react. And of course, road rage is infamous in America and other countries. I've seen people stop and get out and argue and worse because of that. So the point is, simplicity at its very core means to understand unity between all living beings, not just all living beings, but all energies. And that's why the environmental movement is so dependent on this understanding. Because if nature and what we see around us, all our natural resources, is just arbitrary, it just somehow or other, we don't see the connection that it comes from an original conscious source, then why not trash it? What's the difference? And when they say, no, I respect it, but the way in which we may organize our whole society discounts that idea. So in a simpler life, there is a unified way of seeing all energies, all people, all living entities. And this is what in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says is the highest mode of seeing in this world, is seeing unity. The next level down, which causes deep anxiety, is seeing all the differences rather than the unity. Obviously, there are differences on the physical level, but what's the unifying force behind it all? If I don't see that, then I'm caught in this maelstrom of controversy by seeing how people are my enemies. This one is for me, that one's against me, and there is naturally a dichotomy that causes complications and anxiety. And back to the original verse that says, Bayam dvitiya binibesha tasyat. I become absorbed in anxiety by seeing the duality. So this is the premise of simplicity, is seeing unity. And it's a fact. We are all united, and when we take our perspective to a higher level and see that, then we're acting from what's called arjavam, or a simpler state of mind, and it empowers us to move in the world in a more enlightened way. This is the premise of my presentation on simplicity. So before I go to the myriad other slides we have, Let's just see if you have any reactions to that. Anything you heard there that stuck out that said, okay, I could take that on, write it down on a popsicle stick and carry it in my back pocket and pull it out and maybe use it at a certain point. Any reflection? Nirali, please.
Yeah, so I was wondering, actually, when you were saying it, I realized that I do look at people as he said this, they said this, and what they think of me. But now I come back to the point that, we are all part of the same consciousness. So think of the person as the Rama, like you said, one mantra or one person that you can forgive or you can think of like accept them. If it was a Ram, you would accept them. So think of other people as the highest person that you are.
Yes, nice, Nirali. Thank you for amplifying that. For instance, if it's my child, then I feel whatever transgression may be there, somehow or other I tolerate. If it's somebody else's child, it's very difficult to tolerate, right? The
Yeah.
mother tolerates so much.
I have one question though. So
Yeah.
I do feel that way when I talk to people, say, hey, I understand as my own child, as somebody else's child, I do, try not to differentiate, but I do feel some inequalities like in intelligence, and I feel a little envy or something like, hey, how come that person is more intelligent? How come we are not equally intelligent? I might have something else better than the other person, but I feel like intelligence is the way to survive in this world, right? Even for a child, I would like my child to be as intelligent as others. So I feel like, that not equal in that sense makes me a little nervous or anxious.
Well, I mean, for starters, there are different kinds of intelligence. There's IQ. There's also what is called emotional intelligence, which some people have argued, and I think quite successfully, is more intelligent than IQ. I know a lot of dysfunctional geniuses. So, there's different ways that intelligence is manifested. On the other side as well, we live in a bidimensional universe in this sense that we right now, as humans sitting here, are a combination of matter and spirit. We are the spiritual entity that's the living force that's animating this body. When we leave the body, this particular body we're in, the body will no longer be animated. It'll be, as they say, as dead as a doornail. So, it just doesn't move. There's no light. Nobody's home. And however, while we're in the body, although we may have this clear idea that, yes, there are other living beings, we all come that are similar to me on the spiritual level. We all come from an original conscious source. However, we move about the world and we do have to make some distinction. I'll give you an example. For instance, I mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that a wise person, a learned person, sees a learned scholar, an outcast, an animal, maybe even a tiger. They see the unity spiritually. However, that person also doesn't make the mistake, like I'll treat the tiger the same way I treat the scholar, because there is a practical way we have to move in the world. And this is accounted for in the ancient wisdom literatures. We have our vyavaharika existence. That is, you have to move about the world and account for the body that you have right now. It's just temporary, it's rented. And you also have to keep in mind the overarching unity and purpose of life, which is ultimately spiritual. That's called the Paramartika.
Yeah.
Those are
I
a
guess,
few points.
yeah,
Yes.
as long as, we survive with intelligence in this world, right? Whatever it's an engineer or whatever they become. But I just worry sometimes, hey, are they gonna good enough to survive in this world, right?
Living entities are very good at surviving, especially when they have a lot of love and support. And we're always surprised by how well people do. I've seen situations with children growing up where people thought In fact, there are famous examples of such and such may not have this much intelligence, and then all of a sudden they bloom. Living entities have ways of showing intelligence in all forms of life that are beyond imagination.
True.
And
Thank you.
so many of these things are beyond our control. You do your best, you know.
Yeah.
JM?
Yeah, we do have a question from Barbara on chat.
Okay.
She's asking, do you think humankind is moving in this direction? I think it was asked when you were mentioning about looking everyone at a higher plane than a lower plane.
I think you are. Otherwise, you wouldn't be on this program. And all we can do is deal with ourselves. And on a daily basis, I know for myself, I have to practice over and over again, because the oppression of the mind and the body, which is always, as I said, we're in a bidimensional universe. We're dealing with oppressive kinds of energies. And there's a lot of momentum that we have from previous lives. So on an individual level, we have to cultivate it ourselves. And to the degree that we can do that, we can have influence on others as well. And I think that, to answer your question more directly, there is, especially right now, I'm noticing an angst that has brought about a little bit more of a inquiry about what is this world for anyway? When we're sort of blithely going along, everything's good. Then we tend to go by momentum. But when there is somebody throws a wrench in the works, like the virus seems to be something like a kind of a cosmic wrench thrown in the gears here, then it's a good chance. It's a wonderful opportunity to stop and say, hey, wait a minute. What am I doing here anyway? And I do feel that there have been quite a few people that have thought about that a little bit more during this time.
Yeah, Kachan says Helen Keller is a great example of adaptability. I think referring to Nirali's point. And we should all identify as part of the human race instead of putting everyone in categories. Unity is equal to Rama. Thank you.
Yeah, it's there's a study that shows how many of the most successful CEOs in the world are dyslexic, as it brought out in them other qualities that were necessary for that kind of leadership. So, the living being is highly adaptable to any kind of environment, and it expresses its intelligence in various ways.
Wolf has a question. How is evil or communism explained? Please.
Are the two synonymous, are you saying? Evil or communism explained? Well, evil, let's look up the
I think Wolf wanted to clarify. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So they're equal in my mind. As I was made in USSR back in '66, I know exactly what it is. So. And a recent China raising their head and threatening the rest of the world in the region at least. So that's why I'm trying to project here, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, sure. Well, taking from the perspective of the Upanishads, when we talk about evil, we talk about the same principle of consciousness which is being blocked by a material conception. So our actual ability to see unity, to see light, to see our origin and so forth is blocked out by lower energies. I know that sounds really abstract, so let me just say a few more things about it. We are originally, our consciousness is clear and pure, just like a crystal, a pure, clear crystal. When you put something next to it, like if you put a red scarf next to a crystal, then the crystal appears to be red. And if you put a black scarf next to it, it'll appear to be black and so forth. These are called upadhis, or they're artificial designations. We're actually crystal clear, pure. However, when we come in contact with matter, which is a lower energy than ourselves, There's a way in which we start identifying with matter, and we even start taking on the identity of matter. I say, I am this body, but it's not true. I'm not this body because I'm going to leave it sometime. I'm just riding in this body like I ride in a Toyota or any other kind of car. I don't mean to patronize a specific brand. So the body is not the self. And when there are political systems or any other kind of social system that blocks out that understanding of who we actually are, and oppresses the consciousness of people in general, then this is a kind of darkness, and it keeps people in darkness. So when there's not enlightened leadership, and when people aren't able to live in such a way as to discover their higher nature and work towards it, then we call this evil. Of course, that's a really loaded word because the context of it and so forth. So I'm just trying to unpack it as much as possible in the terms of our conscious relationship or lack thereof with the world. JM, should I show a couple more slides?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Okay.
There are a few more questions, but maybe we can come back to it after.
Yeah,
this.
definitely come back to them.
Yeah.
These are intriguing, fantastic, wonderful questions.
And I'm just bringing up the slide. Mid-hour. I just want to quickly also mention the next session. Vaish is traveling, so the next upcoming session will be on Wednesday, May 12th, which is Wednesday at the same time, but instead of Friday, the upcoming session will be on Wednesday, May 12th. So you will receive the updated invite this weekend itself, so that you can block your calendar. But I just want to bring this up. Anything you want to add, Vaish, on that?
Nope.
Okay.
It is what it is.
Okay, so
Thank you.
let's go to the slide back now.
So systematically eliminate clutter from all aspects of your life. Moving on to other practical ways to talk about simplicity from the inside out. Our external environment reflects our internal environment. That goes to my statement about ecology and the way we treat nature and so forth. If I have a clear understanding of its connection, it has a kind of divine origin. So I should be really careful how I walk in the world and how I treat other living beings, whomever they may be. They have just as much right as I do. So yoga means to embrace the simplicity of life, which really means the unity and to be able to appreciate everything in the moment for what it actually is due to its connection with our original conscious source. So frequently, this is a statement I really like. It's very practical. Here it is again. What we are is more important than what we have. What we have right now is slipping through our fingers as we speak. We have things that we can utilize. It's not an advocacy for renunciation, but it is an advocacy for using things for a higher purpose, for service. If I collect many things and I identify with them as myself, then I become consumed by them. They actually become my reality. So through meditation, through the practice of yoga, through selfless service means making some higher sacrifice, we start to realize that actually I'm complete in myself. What I am is significant. What I have, not so much significant. What I am is significant. You're a spiritual being. All the things you have are material nature. Here's a story about the monk who gave up his simple, happy life to save his underwear. So monks, come back into the Zoom room for a sec. They have a simple life. I've known monks. I lived as a monk for 13 years. And for many, many years, I had very few possessions. One of the things the monks wear is a simple kind of undergarment called kopinus. It's just simple cloth that they use, and then they keep two pairs when they wash, when they hang up. If you walk into a monk's ashram, you find those strips of cloth hanging here and there, drying out. The other ones they change later. So it was a monk. He was living in a simple environment in a tiny little ashram next to the river. And he would go take his bath in the river, and he would hang one pair of his kolpinas on a tree, take his bath, come back out. And then he noticed that there was one day that they were missing. Of course, he would notice that they were gone. And he traced it out that a mouse was climbing up, taking the kolpin and dragging it away somewhere. And it happened 3 times. So he went to a wise person somewhere nearby and said, what should I do? And the wise man said, you get a cat. You get a cat, then the mouse won't come around. So, okay, that sounds organic. I'll do it. So he searched out where to get a little cat. He brought it over, and then he was taking his bath one day. Certainly the kolpins were still there, but the cat started crying. So he went back to the wise man and he said, the cat's always meowing. What's going on? He said, well, you have to feed it a little bit. Like, well, how do I do that? He said, you need to get some milk. Cats like milk. He said, where do I get that? He said, you got to get a cow. So he went to the village. He said, where do I get a cow? I need a cow. He brought the cow back. So now he had a cat and a cow. And then he was taking his bath. Kolpin's still there, but the cow was mooing and complaining. And he went back to the wise man and said, what's going on? The cow's now disturbing my meditation. He said, well, you know, you have to milk the cow twice a day. So I said, wow, that's a lot of work. So he went back and he was milking the cow, and he went back to the wise man and said, I don't have as much time as I used to. Is there any way that I can get around this? And he said, well, you need an assistant. Why don't you just get married and find somebody who wants to live out there with you in the same way, and maybe she'll help you and milk the cow. So he said, okay. He went to the village, he found a wife. He came back, and then they were back at the ashram, and the wife said, I'd like to add on just a little bit to this ashram here. And also, by the way, I'm pregnant. And next thing, he had kids. And so he went back to the wise man. Wise man said, you actually need a bigger house. So he went to work, and he started getting an income so he could build a house, so his children could be maintained, and that the cow could have a place, and then the cat would be happy, and then the mouse would stay away. And his guru had been away on a long, long pilgrimage and came back 10 years later to see his simple student living by the river, and he found a palatial building. And he asked around, what happened to my student? And everyone in the village said, oh, he's way too busy to come see you. He's working now, and he has all these responsibilities, and he can't let go of them. So the guru went down to the river one day, and there was a tree by the side, and he grabbed onto it. He started calling out, help, help. And the student came running out and said, oh, Guru, you're here. What's the matter? He said, this tree has got me. And the student said, no, you're holding on. Why don't you just let go? And the teacher turned to him and said, yes, why don't you also just let go? So this is a traditional story. It's told in many ways, but it's very relatable. In fact, there have been studies I've read in the past about how, in order to maintain my wardrobe and my car and my insurance and live near where I work, I have to work, and I have to earn an income. Where does it go? For the transportation, for the wardrobe, for the insurance, and what's left over? Nothing. And so the story is told because It's very practical when we have unnecessary necessities. If we're not careful to keep simplicity in our lives, then it can become inordinate. There it is. Let's see, JM, if we have a couple more. So in the ancient wisdom literatures, the mind is known to be a peddler of wares. And if we focus more and more, which we can do, on the needs of the senses, the more we have to work. The more we have to work, the more we have to maintain. The more we have to maintain, the more complex our lives become. So just be aware of the fact that you don't have to answer the door every time the mind calls and said, I need this, I need that. What's more valuable is the time we have to be simple, to be conscious and aware. Somebody said, oh, it's Mayank. The person in the slide looks exactly like me. So this is a term my teacher used to use, unnecessary necessities. It speaks for itself, unnecessary necessities. The mind makes it urgent, necessary, but look at it carefully, filter it. Is it really necessary? Or will I become a slave to it? I've given this phrase before, Sukhi Nara in Sanskrit means a happy human. What's really the source of happiness is, according to the Bhagavad Gita, one with the power to control his or her urges. So many urges there. You don't have to say everything that's on your mind. You don't have to attend to every single urge that comes in. And Bhagavad Gita says, if you can learn to be the master of your senses, then you'll start to feel a natural kind of happiness that comes from that simplicity of not having to get up and attend to every single thing that comes. So yeah, it comes back to this point of realization. It's called Atma Tattva Gyan. The Atma means the self, and Tattva means to understand a particular category of energy, and Gyan means knowledge. So when we have this awareness of the fact that I'm not my body, I don't have to attend to it all the time. I can give the balance of my time to spiritual practice. It's on loan. What we have is on loan. So let's take a few more reflections. There's a flow to this, and there's a lot of points, but there's only probably so many points we need in one session and so little time. But let's just see what any of the points or the direction we're going in the conversation, any of it resonated with you. Or if there's more questions, Jam, you can bring them up too.
Sure. One question is from Nilet. Where does selfishness arise from in humans?
This comes from what's called Rajogun. So there are three modalities in this world: Sattva, Rajo, and Tamo. These are three levels of energy. Sattva is the energy of light, wisdom, virtue. Rajo is the energy of hankering, desire. No matter what I get, it's not enough. We've touched that energy before. We can relate to it. We know, we get it, but it's not enough. Envy, greed, that's there. And then tamogun, darkness. Complete darkness means the complete oppression by the mind and senses. And I can't see things as they are. I can't do anything good for myself or for others. There's a state of like complete, an overwhelming feeling of not being in control and so forth. It's darkness. So Tamo, Rajo, Sattva, going from bottom to top. In Rajogun, there's a natural way in which I feel selfish. And why is that? It's because I see a dichotomy between myself and others in Rajagun. I'm seeing the differences based on the body. And therefore, in the Vedas, it's explained, jivo jiva sajivanam, this world, like Darwinian survival for the fitness, of the fittest. There's this sense like, if somebody else gets some scarce resource, that's less for me. Right? Isn't that like countries are always fighting over that? And then individuals, like you took up my side of the yard, you move your fence back, the Hatfields and McCoys. There's this sense, this is mine, that's for you, that's for you. And in this dichotomy, this selfishness arises. In sattva, which can be cultivated, the highest modality, there's more of a sense of unity in that we understand that there is ultimately no scarcity in the world. Everything's as it should be. I get exactly what I deserve and everybody else does. And also we're all related. So there's a freedom to try to do good for others wholeheartedly, not in a way that I'm trying to bring attention to my service, but I actually feel like doing it. So according to the ancient wisdom literatures, we get caught in these three different energies. And we can cultivate sattva. And when we do, we'll definitely feel the pinch of selfishness to reduced. Yes.
I just wanted to say that this is so timely for me because I just traveled out of town to clear out this storage that my former husband and I have, our whole 20-year marriage, all this stuff from that's been there for 8 years. And today was the day I was going to go through, and my son's helping me, and he's saying, we're just going to do it, Mom. Like, so this, all this, like, it's proof that I don't really need any of it. It's 8 years, it's memories, it's a lot of things, but I don't need it. And so I'm just appreciating this lesson so much that you've been talking about.
Yeah, thank you. And it's visceral on that level, isn't it? When you see an item, you can realize, oh, I'm connected to this in a certain way, and I'm holding on to it because it's meaningful to me. So reassessing things based on defining my ultimate purpose of life becomes a lot easier way to deal with the things that I have in my life.
Thank you. That's a good thing to remember.
Thank you. Nice point.
Yeah, Blanca who has a question.
Oh, yeah.
Shubha, I think Shubha has a question. Go ahead, Shubha.
Okay.
Oh, thank you so much. I did have a question on the earlier point that you were making about this whole idea of viewing the world as united. And this is great, but I also see that not everyone in the world shares that view. And no matter how much you try to reach this whole idea of sattva, there would be others who are either caught in the rajas or in the tamas realm. And when somebody is either forcefully or in some way trying to grab or take what might be yours, how do you balance that with your view of sattva? Because I think it becomes very conflicting. At one point, you do want to protect what you have so you could use it for better purposes. But then there is also the other point of view, which is since we are all connected, you know, you could very well give away everything and then feel like you were defeated in some way. So
yeah, very good point. This goes back to the point I made about how we live in a bi-dimensional universe. We do have to live in a practical way. Example, you go for an interview, you sit down, they say, you know, who are you? And saying, I'm a spiritual being. I don't really, you know, have a designation. Say, where are you from? I'm from the spiritual world. I don't really live in this realm. They'll say, okay, who's the next one we can interview? So when we move in the world, this is called vyavaharika. There's a practical aspect to our dimension as we're in a car, we're driving it around. You have to park it in the right place. You have to follow you can't drive on the left side of the road here in America. You have to drive on the right side. You can't change that. And you can't fight City Hall either. And also when there are elements in the world that are transgressing other people's rights, those have to be dealt with. That's why in every society there's some kind of peacekeeping, hopefully, force that is in the best of all conceptions. They are protecting those who are innocent and the property they've been designated. For instance, this body, although it's temporary, it's still mine to. It was bequeathed to me to use in this life. So it's illegal for somebody to come and take it away from me or to harm it unnecessarily. So there has to be a practical way in which to work in the world. It's not mutually exclusive with pursuing the vision of sattva and seeing the unity at the same time. Both concepts can be held at the same time. So there's a practical aspect. We're not doormats. We do, if there is a transgression against us, we do have to deal with it. However, we do it methodically but dispassionately. And we have to do our due diligence and take recourse when necessary.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Linda has a related question. Is it wrong to reward ourselves with material things, or is it all about being balanced?
Yeah, Bhagavad Gita talks about this in the chapter on meditation and yoga. So yukta hara viharasya yukta cheshtasya karmasu yukta swapna babodasya yogo bhavati dukkha. Interesting verse. Yukta means balanced, using everything for its right purpose. So there are three categories mentioned here. So yukta ahara means don't sleep too much and don't sleep too little. I mean, that's eating. Then swapna means, or ahara means eating. Don't eat too much and don't eat too little either. Be yukta or balanced. And yukta cheshasya karmasu, also don't recreate too much, but don't recreate too little. Take the middle path. Balance is a very good principle. In fact, the body's always balanced. If you weigh yourself every morning, no matter what you do, you'll find out the body tends to come back to a certain weight for some time. And also we retain homeostasis. So actually, it's how we use things. It's not what we have. I mean, someone might have very few possessions and be very attached to them and use them for malevolent purposes. Somebody else may have an abundance of possessions and use them for a higher cause and not even consciously be enraptured with them because he or she actually is using them for a higher purpose. So this is a principle you brought up called yukta. Can we squeeze one more, Jam, or are we out?
Yeah, we can. So we have Blanca who made an observation. There are times in life when we need resources in sickness, and there are other times when we don't need much.
That's true, yeah. And there's a verse from the Upanishads that says, Ishavasyam idang sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena punchita magradha kasasuddhanam. Means don't consider that you own anything. However, there are certain things that are given to you as your quota, and deal with those appropriately. So sometimes we have more, sometimes we have less. They come to us because of our previous karmas. So when you have more or less, deal with it appropriately.
So a couple of more minutes left. Would you like to make a point from slide, or do you want to take a question?
I think, which would either of those be anticlimactic? I think best way, there are more slides left on the board, but it's all going to come out in a book sometime soon, hopefully. But I'd like to hear from somebody. If anybody has a last comment about just a reflection, not a question, because then I'll have to answer it. No, I don't give short answers. So if you have a reflection of how things went today for you, go ahead. Yes, Eric.
Hey, everybody. My overall reflection from today is that simplicity means to understand the unity between all living beings and all the energies. And that I like the point that the environmental movement is really dependent upon this understanding. If all of nature is arbitrary and you don't see the connection, then there's no harm in destroying everything. But if you see that common source, then it makes a lot of sense. It's in our own best interest to protect it. And that this is the highest mode of seeing in the world, as described by the ancient literatures, to see the unity instead of the differences. And then if you see the differences, you end up seeing the enemies, complications, it leads to anxiety and duality. And if you see everything connected, it leads to a more empowered and enlightened state of mind.
Thank you very much for giving a plethora of reflections. Very helpful indeed.
Thank you.
Well, we have run out of time, but that's the way it goes. And hopefully we can continue next Wednesday together and keep this kind of thought process going through which we can do our own self-improvement wherever we may be. I'm deeply touched that you took your time. I really am. And it's very meaningful what we're doing here. Hearing from you is just life-giving. Thank you so much. And I'll look forward to seeing you. Remember, next Wednesday instead of Friday, because I have to travel on the weekend. And I'm leaving Wednesday night to get to where I'm going, which, by the way, is Southern California. So please keep the transcendental vibration. You know, the yogis up in the Himalayas, when they come out of their caves after meditating for some time, they come out, get some roots and fruits, and they see each other on the path. They wave and they say this phrase that means keep the transcendental vibration going. And it's Hari Bol. So everyone, you can come out of your cave, turn on your camera, unmute yourself and say Hari Bol.
Haribol.
Everybody.
Haribol.
Soon. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.